it,
Yes.
it happens. But it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I want to begin our conversation before we get into your life as a network specialist. How did you survive the last 3.5 years? How did you get through the pandemic and how did it subsequently change you?
So I am one of those people who has had a job lined up since the day before I was 16. I love working and I was a talent acquisition leader. So I led hiring and strategies and all of that fun stuff. And of course, during a pandemic, nobody's hiring. So I experienced my first furlough. And it changed everything for me. I was part of a large women's executive networking group. And so during the pandemic, there were a lot of people losing their jobs. I was sitting in on these calls every week and listening to people with regrets saying, I wish I would have done this. I should have called that person. Maybe I should have interviewed for that job. And for me, it was just this huge eye opener. I had had a coach that I had been given for a special birthday of mine from my thought partner. And during the pandemic, my coach came to me and said, I think you should be a coach. So I started that path. I started the education that goes behind it, getting your first 100 hours. Uh, and then I started digging into the science behind it, how your brain works, taking classes on conversational intelligence and adult development, and launched my own coaching business after my second furlough. I went back to work and realized that I felt like I could help people in a different way. And I've always been obsessed with careers. I am usually that person that sees their potential more than they do.
Yeah.
And, when you're a talent acquisition leader, you're not allowed to take them in the back room and go, you have so much potential. You can do this. Let's talk about, you have to know your place, and your place is hiring and attracting talent. But once they get through the door, there's somebody else's person to grow and develop.
So let's get to the heart and soul of exactly what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day.
Okay.
And one of the kids
Okay.
says, Hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I work with your moms and dads to find their confidence and their clarity in their career. We are taught at 18, or we're asked at 18, what do you want to do when you grow up? And we're supposed to figure these things out. And we go on this long journey. And somewhere along the way, we don't have that confidence of an 18-year-old. We don't have that luster of a shiny new job. And so when leaders can get clear on their values, can find the right place where they want to be, and then show up as their best selves, everything changes. Like, we don't need the protect, control, comply that we're rewarded for at the beginning of our careers. It's really more about finding yourself, helping others, figuring out how to build goals together, and get to the end of it. So I help your parents love their jobs and be
So,
successful.
absolutely. So let's go back to where you were born and raised and how these seeds got into you to help people and to help them get the right job that they want.
So I think I've worked since I was two. I used to sell washers and dryers with my dad at Sears Roebuck in downtown Burbank. He'd take me to work on Saturdays. And I've always loved the idea of working. I've loved careers. I've loved watching people get promoted. I have been fascinated by why some people can succeed in one organization and be big flops in another organization, and how one little derailment can rattle everything.
Yeah.
And so, how do you help people stay confident in who they are and understand that this blip in their radar has given them something to learn, and that they don't always have to run? Sometimes they just need to buckle down and sit in the uncomfortable moments and figure out why they're uncomfortable, what is the challenge, and what can they do about it.
Yeah. So who's been a hero for you? Who's been kind of an inspiration?
Who's been a hero for me? I have worked with so many incredible leaders that have been so generous with their knowledge and their time and caring about others, that I I go back to two or three leaders that I worked for that have been huge inspirations for my career. My dad was also that person who worked a ton. My mother worked in the house and then went outside of the house. I think that people that just figure it out are great inspirations.
So if you could meet one of those inspirations, anybody that's
Oh,
alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
I would just like to follow some leaders around for like 2 weeks at a time. There's
Yeah.
a COO that I worked with, there's a head of HR that I worked with. And I don't want to jump in and out of meetings and their lives. I want to just be the fly on the wall that watches them make decisions, that listens to them in meetings, that understands how, in a difficult situation, they have that confidence to show up as their best self, that they can self author the situation. You run into so many people in corporate America that are afraid to go against the grain, say something that's unpopular. And there are ways to do it and still be who you want to be, because often you find so many times when you start to get miserable at work, it's because you're not doing what you want to do. It's because you're not saying the things that you know to be said, need to be said. And I get so much inspiration by those people who can always figure it out.
Yeah. So what is your motivation every day? What gets you out of bed? What gets you to help people and to evolve as yourself as a professional? What is that for you?
What gets me out of bed is knowing that I don't know everything, that I have these amazing kids and this amazing husband, and I get to go to work every day and provide that space for others to work it out, right? To see what's important to them. I get to ask the questions that challenge their limiting beliefs and watch the light bulbs go off as they start to take a new journey or a new path that they never saw possible for themselves. I was talking to a woman yesterday, and she said she thought she was going to get promoted soon, but if she didn't get promoted soon, that would be okay, that if the right person would get it. And the question is, why not you? Why do you not think that you don't believe it? And what would it take for you to believe it and go after it instead of waiting for it?
So, of all of the clients that you've helped, what's one of your favorite success stories?
Oh, one of my favorite success stories. I have someone that I'm working with right now that has wanted a VP job for, I don't know, 5 years and has had a couple of interim positions. She was offered a vice president role last week, and I don't think she's going to take it. I don't think it was the right offer. I think that she had the confidence in herself at this point to say, this role doesn't set me up for success, and there will be another one out there. That was exciting. I had another person that I worked with that hadn't had a job for a year and really kind of came to the table forgetting about what made them great and why they were great, and looking for that right opportunity to show up as their best self, making probably 35% more than they had made a year ago. And they had a big salary. And to add 35% to it was kind of that reaffirmation that they had everything all along. It was just remembering it.
So, you're in the business of doling out good advice. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, I know this one. I worked with a woman named Robin probably 8 years ago, and she and I were having a conversation after work one night, standing around, and she said, "What people don't realize is that you are never as uncomfortable for as long as you think you're going to be." And I use that over and over again with my clients, with my kids, with my husband, because our brain protects us, right? It tells us, don't go do that, don't go after that promotion, don't try that new thing, don't quit your job and start a whole entire new career, because that's our brain's job. And so leaders, people, parents, whatever it is, can sit in that uncomfortable for years thinking about something that they want to do, when in all reality, if they started visualizing it and making a plan, they're going to be uncomfortable for less time than they may be thinking about it.
Yeah. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of you, and you could give that
Mm.
young version a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life so far. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
I would say find people different than you sooner.
Yeah.
I have a thought partner who we met, I don't know, over 15 years ago, probably. And she came to me. We had been in the same industry. She'd been promoted into a job that I was doing. And she was like, I don't really know how to do this job. Can you teach me how to do this job? I'm like, sure. So we start building this relationship, and she's so different than I am. Politics, religion, lifestyle, people, all of these things, just very different. And this is our conversations are never the same. There is never any threat in our conversations. We can get creative so quickly, and we have an interest in each other's perspective. And I think that we live in these homogeneous worlds, right? Like I was so lucky when I grew up, my father's friends never looked like him. And I think when you look at my friends now, my friends don't always look like me, but for many years they thought like I did.
Yeah.
And so when you start branching out, and even just as simple as trying new foods, traveling, instead of judging people and saying, oh, they cannot be right. Can you believe that they like this or they do that? Listening,
Yeah.
listening to them and understanding why it's important to them and being able to agree to disagree.
So speaking of growth and trying new things, what's the first book that you read when you were younger that was profound, that either made you want to read more or just you revisit?
Okay, that's a great question. I don't think that I was this profound reader as a child. Like Shel Silverstein is kind of who
Yeah.
sticks out in my head, right?
Yeah.
Like the whimsical and the idea of ideas. I love the creativity of the world. The types of books that I like now are really kind of biographies or fictional biographies. Like I love Shackleton's Boat Journey, or Viola Davis has a new book out,
Yeah.
which I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it. Isaac Storm. These are all people who face incredible odds and in some situations just survived, right? Like Isaac Storm is about the great hurricane of 1900 and the entire city being wiped out. And if you haven't read Viola Davis's book, like what this woman did in her life, like
Yeah.
tackled in her life to become this very famous movie star, like it's moving. I
Yeah.
finished it like in a weekend.
Wow. Yeah, I'll have to take a look for sure. So, of all the things that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Helping people, right? Like I love the idea of knowing all of my neighbors. Right before we got on um, the call this morning, my phone was going off because somebody's pipes have burst. And so, as the neighborhood rep, they wanted me to know so that I can send out an email. I just launched a kid this weekend who has gone off to college away from home, has moved out. I can't talk about that though. I might get a little emotional.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, I want to be a good leader, a good friend, a good person.
Yeah.
And that's really all it's about for me.
So, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, neighbors, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am a work in progress. I'm learning and I'm a good friend. I'm the person that you can call in the middle of the night. I'm the person that you can send a text to that says, I know we don't have a session tomorrow, but I just got invited to an internal interview and it's finally happening. I'm the person that can see your potential before you can.
So, as someone that's obviously adventurous, trying new things, I'm going to ask you a question here.
Mm.
If you could go back in time and see one event in human history with your own eyes, where are you going?
One event in human history. So when I was a kid, I used to love Jacques Cousteau. So
Yeah.
it's not really an event, but as afraid of it as I am of water, like I love the ocean, but I don't really want to get in it. I think I would go in a submarine with him and see the bottom of the ocean and all of the fish. And I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but
That's a great
that's kind of
answer.
what came to mind
Yeah.
right away.
That's a great answer. I love it. So if anyone wants to hire you, reach out to you, learn more about you, anything about your world, where do they go?
Go to the networkconcierge.com. So it's the networkconcierge.com. I do coaching with individual clients and corporate clients. One of the things that I love using the most is I've got this tool that helps people understand how time plays a role in their decisions. Too often we wait for the right opportunity or we think that we're not ready. And when you put a timeline to those decisions, then it helps you understand the difficult conversations that you haven't been having that maybe you need to have. It gives you the opportunity to make the decision. You can change your goals, but they're not going to happen without you taking the time and figuring out what's next. And so it's really about you. Like,
Yeah,
what do you want to do with your life and how are you going to make it happen? And how does career and home play a role for you?
absolutely. Susan, this has been great. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Have a great 2024.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.